And in terms of taking better photos of your loved ones, so generally speaking, we're looking at all these photos of Cindy. So I'm just going to take a basic screenshot of this image here. And one of the things we could use is we could use the Procreate tool and click photo and then import a photo that we screenshotted. So generally speaking, when we're analyzing our own photos and our own compositions, you could realize that you could create very simple compositions. So for example, this picture of Cindy right here, the way I was able to make the photo much more interesting is you have all the leading lines of the trees in the background, and then all the way in the bottom of the frame, you just have Cindy in the bottom of the frame with the two eyes in the center of the frame. It becomes a much more interesting composition. Also, one thing I'd recommend is when you're taking photos of your loved ones, you could even photograph it with this. Roar, Amelia! Roar! And you can make photos of your loved ones in motion. Rawr. So don't feel like you always need to use super, fantastic technical settings. Also, when you're composing your photos, one of the practical tips I have is you could see putting a lot of negative space on the left of your frame could often make a much more interesting photograph. Here you have Cindy here on the side. 엄마, Amelia. Oh, 예뻐요. 이거 봐. 와, 예쁘다. And even in photographs like this, you can see the composition is much more dynamic because in the top right corner, I put this face here in the top left, and I intentionally focus on the subject in the background, and I put Cindy's face in the foreground. And so you could realize that one of the best ways to make better photos of your loved ones is just create more dynamic compositions. So often what I'm doing is I'm taking photos of Cindy while we're walking, and so you could see, I'm just shooting a bunch of photos. I saw this line here in the wall and all this graffiti back here. Essentially, I tried to put Cindy kind of somewhere here in the frame, which allows her to have some sort of movement here. And also another practical tip, when you're making portraits of your loved ones, notice in the background the tilt. And this is a technique they call the Dutch angle. And the nice thing is that it creates a horizon that's a little bit off center, and therefore it actually creates a photo that's much more engaging and much more dynamic, which it makes it more fun to look at. Bah! Amelia, what'd you find? Dun 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 dun. Also, other fun compositional techniques.
This one's a fire on the base.
A fire?
Run
wow! Run away! Even another tip is sometimes you're in the background, just finding some sort of interesting things in the background. And what you could do is you could be very experimental with your photography by putting a little bit of the eye here, but you can see Cindy's face is out of focus, which makes it much interesting. Oh, Amelia, 이게 누구야? 누구야? And also one tip I would have too is when you're photographing your loved ones, photograph the hand gestures, because the hand gestures are often what makes the photographs much more emotional. And also another practical tip is when you're photographing your loved ones, you see these nice little minimalist black shells. Oh, the leaf is so nice. Oh, for Samchon? Oh, Samchon put in the hair?
No, it's
No, it's too big. Come on, Amelia. Dung, 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 dung. So if you're curious about all the sounds in the background, that's my little niece Amelia kind of having fun. Oh, so nice. And you could see here in the background, you have all these nice blacks. And the way to do this is find a nice kind of background with epic light. And you could do -1 or -2 exposure compensation. And usually when I'm shooting street photography, I shoot in P mode, which is program mode. And the camera, a lot of these photos are shot on is the Ricoh GR2, which is a good bang for the buck. So yeah, essentially my recommendation is when you're photographing your loved ones, realize that life is short, life is fleeting, and what you could even do is, to better understand your photos, sketch them. Alright, so helicopters are coming now. You gonna fight?
Fight the monster!
Fight the monsters, yeah! Realize that any moment could be a special moment. Moment waking up with Cindy in the morning. And one thing I love to do is look at all the details in the background. So taking some photos where you take a step back. And realizing you don't always have to take all the photos with your fancy digital camera. A lot of these photos here are just shot actually with the iPad. in the phone. And they're really beautiful documents and moments from times all around the world. Amelia Moya. This is a composition I really like, so I'm gonna send this to show you guys what it looks like. Click gallery. Important image. So you can see here, this is a compositional technique that I often use in my photography. It's called the golden rectangle, the golden triangle, or the golden angle. Essentially, imagine drawing a diagonal. Amelia, 뭐 찾았어? What'd you find? So you just draw a diagonal from the bottom left corner to the top right corner, and you draw the reciprocal line around here. Ooh, la, 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 la. La, da, da, da. Lordy, lordy. And you can see, by creating this intersecting point here, this is called the eye. And the nice thing with eye is, this is the area that your eye is generally drawn to. And even if you look at Cindy's body positioning, I really like how her arms are positioned like this. So once again, when you're making nice photos of your loved ones, just try to simplify the compositions and look for the diagonals. So if they just make the background black and I make this layer disappear, you can see this is just essentially an abstract image of Cindy. If I made this really dark. And then press here and I can save this as a JPEG image. Amelia, what did you find?
Find the angry tree.
Oh. Another fun tip is when you're making photos. Dung, 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 dung. Look at the edges of the frame and try to incorporate more diagonals. So in this photograph here, you could see, if I just sketched it, you could see that there's these nice little diagonals here, this nice line here. Oh, Amelia, you're making such funny sounds. You can see her face here, pointing this way, and you see all these nice lines here in the background. And this is just using the default Photos app. And so you could see, you could create such nice compositions. And the secret tip is, look at the edges of the frame to make sure that they're simple and interesting. Going back to the photos. And I'm actually a big fan of using the iPad to look at images. And yeah, just realized that it could also be the details. So this is my mom's glasses from earlier, just on top of her her Bible, which is a nice symbolism. This is my mom in our house in Marseille, shot for our Udemy course. And I just shot this on the iPad with nice natural light. So this is actually another practical tip, is if you want to make a nice photo, just have them stand in front of the nice doorway.
A ring around, round.
Ring around the rosy.
Ring around, round.
Ring around, around.
And the ring around, round. And the ring around. That's why I say, oh.
Yeah. And you can see too here, a bunch of compositions, kind of this minimalist composition, putting Sydney in the bottom right corner here. So thinking about how you can make the composition as minimal as possible with as much black space as possible.
Here we go.
Cindy's mom, there's a nice little light in the hitting her face, and I shot this at my -1 exposure compensation, shot Ricoh GR version 2 raw mode, use the Eric Kim monochrome 1600 preset. Just Google Eric Kim free presets and you can see it. And you can see the nice curve of her hat,
Wow.
her face, abstracted. And the biggest thing, I think the reason why this photo is so good is that I didn't chop off the top of her hat here, and I have a nice black background. 안녕하세요. You could also see these epic this is actually one composition here I like too.
Yeah.
And the way I was able to make it, so you see that the frame is here. Look at the edges of the frame. Notice that this diagonal comes from here, comes from here. And effectively, the nice thing is that it leads all these nice leading lines that take you straight to Cindy.
You just.
Mila dela ai. Even a shot, ask your subjects or your loved ones, your family members, to just move around the arms, looking at the arm positioning. Or asking your subjects or asking your loved ones, just kind of hunch over. So like this picture of Cindy, you could see this curve here, and she's just kind of leaning down this way. So the photograph becomes much more dynamic. 안녕하세요. 무서워요. 대라. 둥둥둥둥둥둥. 무서워요. Dinosaur Amelia, so scary. Or even asking your subjects to dance in front of backgrounds. That's my Amelia dinosaur in the background. Alright. So yeah, that's just a basic overview of the Yep. Just find the blog. And the thing I really want to announce, I'm super excited for, is the Cindy project art portfolio. And it's a really beautiful project. Click on it, invest in it. There's only 10 of the copies left. You could go on the blog and read more about it, and click here add to cart to invest in us. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Make sure to go to the Air Kim blog. Peace out. Come on, Amelia.